Today we're going to talk about how difficult it is to succeed in this sport. Hello to you, this is me, Enzo. Welcome to episode 8, season 3 of the Race Driver Coach Show. And I want to hit something home today. I want to hit home just how difficult this sport can be. You probably already found out. And for it to not get you down. If this sport is pounding you, if this sport is just not giving you any love and you're trying everything, then I just want to will you to take from it, to regain your motivation and to go forward, because it will beat the shit out of you if you let it. This whole episode was inspired by this question from Simon. Enzo, I feel lost. I desperately want to reach the top of the sport, but after 5 years, I am no closer. Shall I quit? Now that is something that a lot of drivers are thinking about, obviously. Shall I quit? I'm getting pressure from home. I'm getting pressure from everybody in life about this is just not working. I remember the same question. I remember being probably 21 years old and people telling me, and I remember one person saying it, how long are you going to give this dream till you give up on it? You do realise that only 1 in a million achieve it at being a race driver. Oh, that got me so angry. It made me want to prove to that person even more. But I had to take a step back about a day after and think, you know what? They're right. This is a kind of sport, and this was like 20 years ago now. This is a kind of sport that is brutal. It will kick the living daylights out of you, and it does every day. But now and then it gives you a little bit of love. And I want you to be prepared for that. Because as you're a kid, when you see motorsport, or anything. You could be, you could want to be a pop star or something. When you see them on TV or somebody in your family shows you something, you fall in love with it. You're like, wow, that is me. That's what I want to do in life. And you see yourself being there. And it's amazing. It becomes this dream that you want to achieve. But the problem is with motorsport is the sheer cost. It's like, I know, this is you talking, I know that I've got to prove to this industry that I'm worth a manufacturer, I'm worth to them so much that they'll stick their label on me and have me as their professional driver. They'll pay me to race. Whether it is Formula One or DTM or anything else, World Endurance, IndyCar, NASCAR, you want to attract the attention of someone who can help you and employ you. But you've got to get to that point first. That doesn't happen from day one. They don't just think that, oh, great, I can see how much you want that dream, so I'm going to help you out. It doesn't work like that. First, you have to prove to them. You have to prove to them just how much you're worth, and that you're worth more than the people they're paying already. That's bloody difficult. That means you've got to tick so many boxes. Now, if you look at all the different race drivers that have made it to a paid career, they had a phase in their life at the very beginning, or for a big chunk of their life, their racing life, where they had to constantly prove it to people. Now, just thinking, some race drivers that I know didn't have the money at the beginning to make it all the way, some F1 drivers, ones like Bottas, Ocon, even Lewis Hamilton, they had a phase of their life where they had to pull out the stocks, they had to sell everything they've got, they had to live off nothing in order to pay for the racing just to have a chance. Ocon I know very well, because when he was living in a caravan and racing karts with his dad preparing the kart, his dad selling second-hand cars to pay for the racing just for his son, and Hamilton had a similar story, we picked him up, we paid for his racing, put him in Formula Renault, and he went to F3 with us, and then GP3, and then Toto Wolff picked him up. But I was part of that academy that paid for him. And I could see the sheer determination of that kid, plus the skill. Remember, he was quick. That warranted us to put money behind him. That's the point you've got to get to. That's difficult. If you're sat at home now, you haven't done a race, and you're wondering how to become an F1 driver or a professional driver to be paid to race, which is amazing. which is a very privileged position to be in. You've got to think to yourself, it's going to take hundreds of thousands of pounds, dollars, euros, or whatever it is to get to that stage where somebody notices me. This is something that a lot of people are not understanding. Obviously, there's many people that are proving this wrong. They do Formula Ford for about 100 grand or 60 grand. They win that, then somehow they get a gentleman driver to pay for their driving or share a GT car. Then eventually 6 years down the road, they end up getting paid to do something. So it does happen. But I want you to be prepared for how this sport really works. It's a case of you investing in yourself in order to prove yourself to people that you're worth backing. There's a risk. There's a huge risk here. And this is what I was talking about with Simon. Not his real name, but with Simon. Now, he's been racing single-seaters for some time, has never won a race. So he's spent, or his family have just about managed to scrape together hundreds of thousands over these 5 years, whatever it is what he was racing. Yet he still hasn't proven that he's good enough. So what's going to happen? When he's in his position, he's got to take stock and say, actually, have I got the skill to be a race driver? Or can I go to GTs or touring cars that might fit my style a bit better and I can be quick and then I can create value for a manufacturer to employ me? I'm saying all this because I'm getting so many people writing in saying I'm X age, whatever it is, 20 years old, 16, 30, and I want to become a professional driver. Can you help me do it? And it's like, guys, you do realize how difficult this is, right? You do realize that if I'm going to help you and attract sponsorship or attract someone to help you and say, this driver's worth looking at, you're going to have to have proven it first on track to show that you've got the results, to show you've got the work ethic, you've got the right personality to pull it off. Then you've got something to sell. So I want you to take it on yourself right now to say, I've got to get to that position. I've got to spend all this money or attract all this money just to get people to notice me, to start winning. I've got to win. Only then do I stand a small chance of someone picking me up. That is how life is. That's how motorsport is. It's pretty much, that's it. I've coached drivers that have won huge championships, like big world championships, yet they're still not getting paid. Get that through. This is what it's like. You see drivers go all the way to GP2 back in the day, F2. They're there for 3 or 4 years and they're still not getting picked up by Formula One drivers. And they've won races now and then. This makes you then start to look at yourself and think, what chance do I have? And I'm not telling you this to beat down your confidence and your self-belief. I'm telling you this just to give it to you straight, and that's how the industry is. There's no promises. There's no guarantees. You may spend $500,000, $1 million, $2 million, $3 million just to find out if you can make a career in this sport. That's how cruel it is. If you go back to the early days, it was a wealthy man's sport. They built their own car. It could have been Ferrari or anyone, Maserati. They built their own car and they raced it. You need to be fairly wealthy to do that, or connected. And it never has stopped. Because it's a motor that you're racing, it's expensive. So if you want to play in this game, you've got to know the rules. The rules are, you've got to invest, or someone has to invest for you, all that cash just to see if you're good enough. Now, are you prepared for that? If not, if you want to take it slower and you think, right, I'm going to do it the Enzo way. I'm going to hold down 3 jobs. I'm going to get hold of money. I'm going to sell little sponsors, like loads of £500 sponsors to get on the car as much as I can, just to scrape the money together to do a club championship. Just to see if I'm any good. Then go that route. I don't want you to be ego-driven to think that you've got to shoot for the big championships when you haven't got any money in the bank and you haven't got any people, no family or anyone who can pay for it. Because I'm seeing too many people sit on the sidelines, too many drivers that could be awesome drivers, sit on the sidelines because their first step of the ladder, rung of the ladder, is too high. They can't get the 200,000 to pay for that championship, so then they just fail every year. They're getting older, they're missing out. When in fact, if they just bloody worked their tail every day to gather up about 60, 70 grand somehow over a year or two, they could pay for a championship that would get them in the sport, that would get them some race wins, get them used to the industry, start to make contacts, and then build up. So then that first rung of the ladder on the pro sort of ladder is maybe your year 2 or 3. This is brutal. This sport will smack the shit out of you consistently, but a lot of you out there, even when you're in racing, are still not coming to terms with it. You can have the greatest opportunity ever. We're going to pay for your racing, we're going to put you in the best team, but you know what? That can be your worst year. You could break your back and be injured. You could all of a sudden understand that a teammate's got a faster car than you because of the politics, and you're not allowed to win really. So then you look rubbish. So then you lose the opportunity. This sport never stops hitting you. Even when you're in F1, you get attacked everywhere by the media. And everyone's trying to pounce you. It's not easy. And there's too many people that are seeing it as a fluffy dream. And that everything's going to be nice and it just works that way. But I want you to know that this is hard. Life is hard. And then if you want to become this F1 race driver or a professional driver, you've just turned up the hardometer to make it even more difficult to succeed in life. But you've got to be prepared for that. You've got to be prepared for it. You've got to be really thick-skinned. But also, you've got to make sure that you work on this all the time. You cannot be lazy in motorsport. If you are, you fall behind. You take a day off, your competitors don't, you fall behind. You've always got to bring in the money. You've always got to attract. You've got to know how to win people over, to create value in their lives so they create value in your life. This is difficult. So I just want this little video to remind you to not sit back and dream on one day I'm going to be a race driver. I want you to ask yourself at the end of each day, what have I done today to get myself closer to becoming a race driver? Have I proven to anybody I'm worth backing? And if it didn't work, how can I change my approach, change my sales pitch, and go again? You've got to get people believing in you. How are you going to get to the point where they notice you? With all these thousands of drivers, how are you going to peacock? How are you going to be the one that they say, you know what? I want to stick that Mercedes or BMW or Ferrari badge on you because you're going to help us sell more cars. When you start thinking like this, you start to just put the antennas out to work in a different way to most drivers. Most drivers think, if I win, the phone's going to ring and that's it. I deserve to become a pro. They've got it on their Instagram profile, race driver, and they've probably only done 3 seasons and they're paying. So they're not really a race driver. They're just paying to race in a championship. That's it, out of their own cash. It doesn't really make them a race driver, but it's on there. Even people that are dreaming to be a driver and they'll never race, they're putting race driver on their profile. No bravado's allowed. Just like business, if you really want to succeed, you can't have ego about this. You've got to be so determined and so into the process and in the dirt that you can succeed. You've got to be the workhorse. Racing and life doesn't owe you anything. You're the one that's got to prove to the world that you're worth backing. If you can't do that, and if the skill's not good enough, if you're just not good enough at driving in that particular car, that's just the way it is. It's nothing personal. It's not saying that you're less of a person just because you can't drive a car around a corner as quick as these people, and they've probably done it for years. You've got to become so self-aware of your own skills, so self-aware of how your place in this world that motorsport just exposes it. So I want you to take this on. Motorsport is tough, but what are you going to do to get through it? If you're truly dedicated to becoming a race driver, how are you going to prove to the world that you're worth backing? You're worth a manufacturer to pay your wages, your mortgage for the benefit they get from you in the car. Start to work on it. Motorsport doesn't owe you anything. Just because you've got the dream and you want it so badly, it's all you think about, that's got no currency in racing. Prove it. Get the money together, get on track and start winning.